boldly in our Agenda 2063, where we pursue an agricultural revolution through modern, sustainable agricultural practices. Our focus should not only be on increasing fertilizer usage, but also ensuring its judicious application to revitalize responsive soils and rehabilitate degraded ones. Despite our current situation falling short of our ambition outlined in the Abuja Declaration, SDG 2 and Agenda 2063, there are reasons for optimism. It is encouraging to see several African nations making strides in fertilizer production, particularly phosphate fertilizers. However, the absence of nitrogen fertilizer production plants due to high capital requirements underscores the need for regional investment collaboration to enhance our self-sufficiency in fertilizer manufacturing. I stand here to make a very strong case for a common strategy, collective action, joint investment, and logistical collaboration to ensure every arable acre of Africa's land receives the right type and quantity of fertilizer. This transformation will shift our agricultural production from that of deficit straight into surplus. My case is made even more irrefutable from evidence from Kenya's own intervention. Let me say this. A year ago, our agricultural production, especially of maize, was about 40 million bags. With the use of fertilizer in the last 1.5 years, adequate, crop-specific fertilizer that we used e-voucher, technology-based e-voucher, we have increased our agricultural production of maize from 40 million bags to 67 million bags in one season, just because of the correct use of fertilizer. If anybody had a doubt that proper application of fertilizer gives results, Kenya's case is a clear testimony that appropriate use of fertilizer that is crop specific, using technology to make sure that we get the right fertilizer to farmers gives results. And that is why this meeting is very important. To turn this situation around, as I have said, we use the fertilizer that is crop specific. This initiative resulted in the bumper harvest we received, and we leveraged on technology, utilizing an integrated digital platform that registered over 6 million farmers. Through this platform, farmers access fertilizer using mobile phone vouchers, make payments, and receive collection notification at nearby stores and facilities. More land is now under cultivation, with each acre yielding higher production since the availability and because of availability and affordability of fertilizer. More importantly, farmers across the country receive soil-specific fertilizer formulation in adequate quantities, resulting in unmistakable differences and encouraging progress. To achieve Africa's green revolution, large-scale subsidized fertilizer use is a necessary imperative. Therefore, as we continue our deliberations, I urge this summit to pay particular attention to several critical areas. First, prioritizing investment in nitrogen and phosphate fertilizer production facilities that is essential, especially using the raw materials we have in our continent. It is possible for us, especially to produce organic fertilizer using the resources we have in the continent. Let me also say, number two, is to ensure that we have timely, adequate, appropriate fertilizer availability in season for us to be able to unlock the huge potential in our agricultural production. Additionally, We need sustainable strategies to make fertilizer more affordable, more accessible. Enhancing last-mile logistics of fertilizer distribution is equally critical. Moreover, building farmers' capacity for effective fertilizer use and soil health improvement is also a necessity. To anchor our intervention in sustainability, we must design effective subsidy programs that support both immediate productivity needs and long-term soil health. Fundamental to our efforts will be the need to entrench production incentives by leveraging the Africa Continental Free Trade Area to enhance market access and profitability for our farmers. I had a conversation with my brother, President Hichilema. When they had a bumper harvest, we didn't have as much, and we were having a conversation how we can import from Zambia. Maybe because today we have a bigger production, bumper harvest, we will have the conversation in reverse. The Africa Continental Free Trade Area will give us the necessary logistical infrastructure and policy framework for us to be able to trade freely and effectively within our continent. And that is why it is important that we leverage on the Pan-African initiative and integration that will provide a basis to harness research, science, and technology to develop a robust African soil information system, support a community of soil health experts across various sectors, and enhance research and soil testing facilities to support informed decision-making. I see this summit, ladies and gentlemen, as our opportunity to define viable pathways for rapid agricultural transformation in our continent. The knowledge, experience, capability, and commitment demonstrated by delegates gathered here are pivotal for driving our agenda forward. I am confident that together we can usher in a new era of agricultural productivity that is both sustainable and profitable to our farmers. I welcome all of you to this very important summit. Thank you for your dedication and partnership as we embark on this very important conversation. Africa is counting on you. Let us rise to the challenge. A green revolution is not just essential to feed a young continent, it is an imperative to transform Africa into a surplus producer and the world's bread basket. It will also catalyze wealth generation, job creation, manufacturing, and exports, a testament to the pivotal role of getting fertilizer right. I wish you all productive deliberations and look forward to empowering outcomes at the conclusion of this summit. Thank you very much, and welcome to this summit, and welcome to Nairobi. Asante sana.
Wonderful round of applause for His Excellency, the President of Kenya, Dr. William Samoei Ruto. Your Excellencies, allow me at this point to now invite the Chairperson of the African Union Commission, His Excellency Musa Faki Mohammed, to make his remarks. Welcome, sir.
Excellency Dr. William Samoei Ruto, President of the Republic of Kenya and the host of the Africa Fertilizer and the Soil Health Summit. Excellencies, Head of State, Government and Delegation, Honorable Ministers, Honorable Partners, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. And chairing this key summit on a vital issue for Africa, which is soil health and fertilizers, after hosting here in Nairobi an African summit on climate last year. Your commitment and personal leadership, Mr. President, has been a pivotal driver for the momentum we see today. I also wish to reiterate my compassion and solidarity with you, Mr. President and dear brother, and the government and people of Kenya amid the devastating floods which have claimed more 100 innocent lives. Please stand and observe 1 minute of silence. Thank you very much. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, in the context of the continued negative impacts of climate change, the theme of this summit is particularly pertinent. We must listen to the land. Africa is experiencing accelerated soil degradation, including through desertification and floods, as we are seeing in East Africa and here in Kenya. Often alternatively, either droughts or floods, which in turn reduces the production and productivity in the African agricultural sector. But the current pace of soil degradation in Africa has attained a threshold which requires proactive attention and action from all to halt the degradation and commence effective soil health management. What is clear is that Africa's agricultural production capacity falls way below global norms. Equally important are the causes of soil health degradation on the continent. The African Union Commission is committed to address the issues of soil health in all African countries. This determination is what led us to develop the Soil Initiative for Africa and the Africa Fertiliser and the Soil Health Action Plan. While the Soil Initiative for Africa is a long-term framework aligned with our Agenda 2063, the Action Plan is the 10-year implementation plan. Regarding fertilizers, they constitute a critical input for productivity if properly used according to accepted scientific norms. The Abuja Declaration on Fertilizer for a Green Revolution in Africa with a target of 50 kilograms per hectare per year. 18 years later, the average fertilizer use rate stands at about 18 kilograms, less than half of the target set in 2006. We have a responsibility on boost local fertilizer production and deliver quality for our food sovereignty and security. These investments should also be reflected in our national budgets. However, and as our biennial review show, we remain far from attaining the targets set in Malabo in 2014, which gave us a clear implementation roadmap. Ownership is partly hamstrung by an over-dependence on partners for the financing of our agricultural development ambitions. It is simply not sustainable. So, in conclusion, and in light of all the points I raised, we need to renew strong political will by member states through the mobilization of domestic resources to reflect the priority of the agricultural sector and as defined in Malabo. Indeed, it is up to the continent to lead a pragmatic technological revolution to transform this key sector if we are to move beyond the classic strategies since Abuja and reinforce our implementation capacities. Agriculture remains a strategic and a key lever for continental industrialization and the creation of jobs that are also vital for development, stability, and prosperity. It is therefore up to us to harness our collective determination and resources in addressing soil health and fertilizer use in a holistic manner if we are to achieve sustainable food system on our continent. Our strategic frameworks are in place, and we have the capacity to work together to produce the fertilizers and the other agricultural inputs we need. Let us, therefore, give ourselves the necessary political means to address the challenges to our food sovereignty. I thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you. Let's give him a warm thank you clap. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Next on stage, allow me to now invite His Excellency Haile Mariam Desalegn, former Prime Minister of the Federal Republic of Ethiopia. Welcome, sir.
Your Excellency, Dr. William Ruto, President of the Republic of Kenya and our host, Excellencies, heads of state and government, vice presidents, Excellency Mr. Musa Faki Mohammed, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, honorable ministers, high-ranking government officials, representatives of international organizations, development agencies, private sector, and farmer organizations, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me a great pleasure to express my sincere appreciation for the honor I have been given to deliver welcoming remarks at the African Fertilizer and Soil Health Summit in this beautiful city of Nairobi, known for its stunning landscapes, vibrant culture, and diverse wildlife. On behalf of the Agra Board and Management, and on my own behalf, I take this opportunity to welcome you all to this historic summit, which creates an opportunity to explore a wide range of issues around African fertilizer and soil health, and the implications of the agricultural, health, and social well-being of the continent. My sincere gratitude to the President, government, and people of Kenya to the warm reception and hospitality according to all delegations since their arrival. Excellency, Mr. President, allow me also to express my deep appreciations to the African Union Commission and to the government of Kenya for jointly hosting this important summit. At this juncture, I would like to thank my sister, Commissioner Sako, for her leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, this African Fertilizer and Soil Health Summit has come at a critical moment. We as a continent are facing a myriad of challenges linked to unsustainable agriculture, including low agricultural productivity and human malnutrition, which is estimated to be impacting at least 20% of African population. It's my hope that the summits will drive the future of African food systems and catalyze sustainable agricultural productivity and food security in the continent. And I assure you that your contribution to the summit is paramount important. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, let me start by quoting a saying from the Kikuyu people of Kenya. I quote, "You must treat the earth well. It is not given to you by your parents. It is loaned to you by your children." End of the quote. According to the Kikuyu culture, each member of the family must take care of the earth, cultivate it, and make sure that the whole environment is taken care of. Excellencies, the first African Fertilizer Summit held in 2006 in Abuja, Nigeria, aimed to position fertilizer as a key ingredient to increase crop yields and address the associated challenges of food insecurity and poor incomes faced by smallholder farmers in Africa. The business as usual trajectory is obviously unsustainable. We showed only a slow incremental progress, and while the reality on the ground calls for an exponential results. The discourse has been changed from crop productivity and profitability focus to a broader set of goals and targets, such as sustainability, climate change adaptation and mitigation, rehabilitation and regeneration of degraded land and our soil, and restoration of environmental services, a mix of solutions and one jacket fits all kinds of Africa is how to exponentially increase crop productivity sustainably under rapidly increasing demographic pressure and changing climatic conditions while maintaining or enhancing the health of the soil resource base. Safeguarding the health of African soils is key. It's not just about enhancing food security, but also ensuring environmental sustainability. To illustrate this point, Ethiopia invested in sustainable land management program alongside our development partners, which spanned 209 districts in 6 regional states. This was instrumental in reducing land degradation, enhancing soil regeneration, boosting household resilience, increasing vegetation cover, and improving downstream water supplies. On average, total loss in the watershed was decreased by about 65%, and while the crop yield increased by 20%. The Ethiopian Soil Information System was also a major investment that gathered and analyzed soil samples from each of Ethiopia's 18,000 agricultural local village administrative units. Over 160,000 soil samples were cataloged, leading to the development of district-level fertilizer and fertility maps and fertilizer recommendations for each administrative village. Since 2008, my organization, AGRA, has supported numerous interventions to increase fertilizer use. Over 300,000 metric tons of fertilizer were delivered to smallholder farmers through AGRA's Agro-Dealer Development Program, and an additional 600,000 metric tons through a collaboration with the Africa Fertilizer Agribusiness Partnership. We see this as a drop in the ocean when compared even to the gap of 20 million metric tons required to reach the modest 50 kilogram per hectare target of 2006. Although Africa is now apparently a net exporter of mineral fertilizer, it has a very low uptake. Besides, the procurement, distribution, and subsidy programs are marred with bad governance in most cases. Encouragingly, however, first, there are innovations that can enhance the uptake and governance solutions to scale in Africa. One example is the Akilimo site-specific fertilizer recommendation portal, which has reached more than 400,000 cassava farmers in Nigeria and Tanzania through a network of over 200 scaling partners who operate in the field of aggregation, input supply, and credit and commodity processing. Another example, which is alluded by the President of His Excellency, the President of Kenya, is a digital innovative voucher systems alluded by just now. Second, there is ongoing research in Morocco for innovation on decentralized, low-cost green ammonia program with a capacity to reduce the cost of nitrogen fertilizer and its logistics. Your Excellency, the President, we can also produce green nitrogen in Africa, which is very conducive. The third, innovative policy prescriptions that address targeted subsidy programs based on the most used nutrients in the specific location than general subsidy to reduce the cost of subsidy. These are encouraging innovations, to mention a few, that can help us to depart from business as usual model. Your Excellency, Dr. William Ruto, Excellencies, heads of state and government, ladies and gentlemen, we should commit ourselves in the loudest voice to do everything possible to make sure the African Fertilizer and Soil Health Summit successfully catalyzes a transformation on the continent by mobilizing technical, political, and financial support for lasting change. Let us seize this opportunity to reaffirm our commitment to soil health and agricultural sustainability in Africa. By working together and implementing the African Fertilizer and Soil Health Action Plan, we can build a future where every African has access to healthy and nutritious food, and our soils thrive to sustain the current and future generations. We still have a long way to go to depart from the old model, but in the spirit of open discussion and willing cooperation to solve mutual problems, this will be a significant summit to listen to the land and our soil. In closing, I welcome you once again to the African Fertilizer and Soil Health Summit and wish you a successful deliberations. I thank you and God bless you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. And next, I'll call upon His Excellency Emmerson Mnangagwa, President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, to make his remarks. Welcome, sir. We can give him a warm clap as he's approaching the stage. Asanteni sana.
Your Excellency, President of the Republic of Kenya, Your Excellency Dr. William Ruto, His Excellency Mr. Mohammed Kaswani, President of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania and Chairperson of the African Union, Your Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, His Excellency, the Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Mr. Musa Faki Mohammed, Ambassador Joseph Sako, the African Union Commissioner for Agriculture, Rural Development, Blue Economy, and Sustainable Environment, development partners, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'm honored to be addressing you at this important summit, which is reflective of the importance that we attach to the soil as a vital resource to stimulate agricultural productivity, to guarantee food security and sovereignty across our beloved African continent. Regrettably, low fertilizer use and the poor soil health continue to undermine sustainable agricultural production and productivity, particularly among our communal and smallholder farmers. This is compounded by climate change, inadequate infrastructure and mechanization. Hence, the need to deliberately support and increase investments in agriculture, particularly for women and the youth, cannot be overemphasized. It is unfortunate that despite the inherent potential, Africa currently spends billions of dollars in food and fertilizer imports per year. Greater efforts must be made to leverage the availability of raw materials for the local production of mineral fertilizers and reduce our over-resilience and reliance on imports. Similarly, agriculture extension, communication, and education programs should be strengthened with regards to scaling up fertilizer consumption to reach the target of 50 kg per hectare. The African Development Bank is commended for setting up a fertilizer fund aimed at boosting local production of fertilizers, as well as research, science, innovation, and technology development. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, Zimbabwe has not been spared from the adverse effects of climate change, with our sub-region currently experiencing an El Nino-induced drought. However, my government continues to implement the agricultural food systems and the rural transformation strategy, which, among other aspects, prioritizes improved policies, investment, finance, and markets for fertilizer and the soil health management. Additionally, access to and affordability of organic fertilizers for sustainable soil management practices and interventions are being broadened. To date, Zimbabwe has made great strides in implementing a soil health-based improvement in production and productivity of crops and livestock. Village-specific information on soil health is now available through improved mobility and ICT gadgets. Through such interventions, which were also encouraged by the Climate Smart Pfumvudza in Twasa program, it's a shorter name, Zimbabwe realized food security and recorded surpluses in wheat over the last 3 consecutive years. My administration stands ready to broaden partnerships, synergies, and investments to enhance crop yields. Several opportunities exist for investors to set up new entities or partner with current local companies in Zimbabwe through either upgrading existing or introducing new technology to scale up fertilizer production in our country. Excellencies, distinguished guests, Zimbabwe endorses the Nairobi Declaration, Soil Initiative for Africa Framework, and the Africa Fertilizer Soil Health 10-year Action Plan. It is, however, critically important for us to invest in strategic institutions mandated to provide the requisite leadership and mechanisms to meet our desired goals on the continent. As host to the African Center for Fertilizer Development, Zimbabwe knows that the center remains a critical cog in promoting research on soil health and fertilizer development. We thus welcome the commitment to fully operationalize and support this Africa Center for Fertilizer Development, which was the brainchild of our august body and whose strategic mandate is aligned with the agenda of this summit. In concluding, may I express my gratitude to the President of the Republic of Kenya, His Excellency Dr. William Ruto, for warmly receiving us. I also convey our heartfelt condolences to the government and the people of Kenya for the loss of lives due to the climate change-induced devastating floods. Our prayers and sympathies are with you, my dear brother, during this difficult time. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Next, I would like to invite His Excellency Hakainde Hichilema, President of the Republic of Zambia. Why don't we welcome him with a warm clap, sir? Sir, you can use this side. This is closer to you. Welcome, sir. Sorry about that. Welcome.
Thank you very much, moderator. Let me recognize President Ruto, our host. Thank you for the good messages you have given us in your opening speech. Let me acknowledge the presence of my fellow heads of state and government, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, honorable ministers from all our countries that are present, business community members that will be with us today. Let me also simply say, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and indeed the media. First, our hearts go out to you, President Ruto, and the people of Kenya for the loss of lives arising from the floods that Kenya and other parts of our continent are experiencing. The loss of lives, property, dislocation of people is regrettable. It's ironic that you're going through floods here when we in Zambia and the rest of Southern Africa are experiencing the worst drought in recorded history. Yet we are just, for us, 2 hours and 30 minutes away from you. So floods here, drought there. Climate change is really distorting our lives. Let me also acknowledge those that have spoken before me. The issues they've raised are all valid, and that's what brings us here together in this summit: fertilizer and the health of our soils. We need to find solutions. We are delighted to note that our experts have been here ahead of us discussing these issues, these challenges, and how we can contrive solutions to them to address one of the critical insecurity aspects on our continent, which is food. And with drought and floods, sometimes in the same season, it means that even our green energy agenda is impaired, as it is in Zambia, I'm sure Zimbabwe, since we share common assets on green energy generation hydro power stations. We have food insecurity, we have also energy insecurity. This is a double tragedy, and for us to drive increased food production, we do need energy. So you can see, I know here we are talking about fertilizer, soil health, for food security. But the flip side of that is also energy insecurity. So we need, at some other point, or at the back of our minds, to be looking at how we address the energy insecurity as well, to allow us to support the improvement in the agricultural production as a consequence of applying appropriately fertilizer, I repeat that, given the soils, the crops that we produce in our countries, but also the continuity in the health of our soils, which is in a way invariably affects climate change if we don't manage these variables correctly. So we agree with colleagues that have spoken. Before we arrived with the heads of state, the technical people that have been here, we bank on you to make solid recommendations for implementation so we can remedy the challenges that we're facing. Let me just touch one or two things to put context to the conversation. Fertilizer has to be available, but fertilizer has to be affordable as well. Very important. There's no point making more fertilizer, appropriate fertilizer available, if it's not affordable to our farmers, because we will not achieve the intended objective to increase productivity, as well as, if you like, to secure, for the most vulnerable, food for their family members. There's been a touch already made on the appropriateness of fertilizer. In the past, most of our countries, although we are pushing to increase the quantum of fertilizer we apply, 50 kgs as it were, it is true that we've been applying fertilizer, lesser quantities, yes, but also inappropriate fertilizer, because we've not done enough soil testing, we've not done enough research and therefore development on the varieties that need to be treated differently. So I do believe that this outcome, President Ruto, the outcome of this conference, will address those issues as well. If fertilizer is not affordable, it means when we produce the food will be expensive. That's a package we need to take account of as a team, working together. We shouldn't depend on others to supply us with fertilizer from outside the continent. Therefore, we need to invest, I agree with President Ruto, on our continent to increase the capacity to produce fertilizer. Yes, using our raw materials as much as possible, those that are available. And the continent has these raw materials, which must be exploited effectively. But we need to invest in order to exploit these resources. And we've been singing this song that when we invest, we must ensure that we mobilize capital which is fairly priced. Otherwise, there will be a cost push on the fertilizer that we produce. So the issue of fair, correct price of capital remains valid in these conversations. And I would like to repeat what we've been saying before. We mobilize capital, we mobilize technology, which is also critical. Capital at the right price, technology, appropriate technology, not a second fiddle. We want to leapfrog as a continent to the best technology available. Very important. We also, as we talk about investment in fertilizer, we must talk about trading with each other. There's no point that we work together to increase capacity to produce fertilizer, but a number of us on the continent are still placing orders to purchase fertilizer from other parts of the world. It means we're failing to support the investments that we've made for them to be viable. And if they're not viable, we know the consequences. So I think it's important that the technical colleagues that have been deliberating on this matter, we, the heads of state, include in our minimum requirements buying from each other. In Zambia, we've started practicing that on fertilizer and other aspects. 2 years since we took office, 2.5 years now, we've been able to move from almost a zero situation or minimum situation of producing fertilizer, especially the vessel dressing, to self-sufficiency, and we'll be moving towards self-sufficiency on the top dressing. But we have also deliberately said that we shall practice what we're calling positive discrimination, buy from ourselves. So that should apply for us. What we don't produce, buy from Zimbabwe, buy from Kenya, buy from someone else on the continent. But I think this is something that we must make as a minimum amongst others, that we buy from ourselves. Then we can commercially support the decisions that we're making out of such conferences. Abuja declarations a long time ago. Why haven't we made progress? We need to introspect and begin to address those issues that have not allowed us to make progress as we would have loved to. Let me also indicate something here, which I know it's been touched by colleagues already, even before we arrived, we who came only last night, and to be here for this morning's conversation. I think while we want to apply appropriate fertilizers, quantities, take account of soil types, yes, but productivity carries a very important value here. We shouldn't be going for putting on farming or bringing into farming activities all the hectareage that is available and can be farmed. We can avoid that, because if we go that way, we damage the environment further. It will instigate more floods, more droughts. We know that on that side. I think we should drive productivity to levels where the hectares under cultivation doesn't necessarily have to expand by bringing down more trees, but by utilizing with a higher productivity the hectares that we already have under cultivation. I think that's very important, so that we manage the two evils, food insecurity, but also reducing climate damage, so to say. I think then we'll be more and more complete as a continent. I must also say, again, with the drive on climate change, droughts, we need to invest in agriculture driven by irrigation as much as possible. So I'm just touching on things that I think we should be alive to as we come to maybe reaching conclusions whenever we do that. Precision irrigation is very important. If I may say, going forward, we who run public affairs, together with the private sector, who bring to the table the challenges, the farmers that produce, who bring the challenges that they face imposed by the legal and regulatory framework and policy framework. We have to address those issues so that investments in fertilizer production, investment in actual primary agriculture, investments in processing, agro-processing, value addition, storage, transportation, logistics, roads, railways, are all brought under control, but the environment in our countries must improve. The operating environment must improve. Legislation, legal impediments must also be isolated clearly within national boundaries and beyond national boundaries. I would like to make that argument in this summit as well. I think it will be helpful that we took into account those issues. I guess my colleagues have also mentioned the importance of soil mapping, digitization. President Mnangagwa has touched on that. It's extremely imperative. Maybe we should set targets as to when we should conclude this baseline work, such as soil mapping, Prime Minister, and digitization, so we can improve knowledge of what soils we have in our countries, across our countries, on the continent, and being able to talk to each other, sharing best practices. I think this is important in my view. And then we'll be able to manage our soils better, sustainably, without damaging them, but we'll also be able to use fertilizer in the correct way. I do believe that this we can do under 3 years. We should set ambitious targets in order to address the laxities out of the Abuja Declaration. We should set tight timelines, targets, realistic, yes, but they must be ambitious because Africa cannot wait. The young population needs food, vulnerable families need food, young population need jobs. They need jobs not just in primary production, but also in secondary industries arising from agriculture, produce as food, raw material, but also industrial raw materials. I think it's very important that African Union Chair, we consider these tight timelines so we can be, if you like, remedial to the challenges that we face following the Abuja Declaration. If I may also say, we in Zambia are committed to the declarations that we'll make here. And I believe all of us should be committed. And maybe what is important is to work out a matrix of implementation measures that we can share as a common checklist, all of us. Of course, country-specific, but also Africa-specific in a way, broader than our own national boundaries. I think that's what will bring us together even more on the different aspects. Thank you for your attention. Merci beaucoup. Asante sana.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for those remarks. Next, I would like to invite His Excellency Faustin Archange Ouattara, President of the Central African Republic, to make his remarks. Welcome, sir. We can encourage him with a clap as he comes up. Karibu sana, as we say it in Kenya. Karibu.
Excellence.
Your Excellency, Dr. William Samuel Ruto, President of the Republic of Kenya, heads of state and government present here, Mr. Musa Faki Mahamat, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of my country, the Central African Republic, I would like to express satisfaction with the excellent quality of this commission on African soils and fertilizers, as well as the legendary hospitality of the people of Kenya. The organization of this important summit, in spite of the extreme meteorological conditions which have led to floods and led to the loss of several lives, as well as a lot of material damage in Kenya. In spite of the resilience of the Kenyan people and the strong will of the government of this country in the quest for sustainable solution to the common problems of humanity. Let me reiterate to our brother, President Ruto, and the brotherly people of Kenya, my feelings of compassion as well as the solidarity of the people of the Central African Republic. These extreme meteorological conditions, which are only getting worse in the past few years, apart from loss in human life, have indeed deteriorated the quality of our arable land and agricultural production, and has led to food crisis in our respective countries. That is why the Central African Republic is happy with the African Union initiative and that of the Republic of Kenya to organize this summit, which gives us an opportunity to together consider the health of Africa's soil, to adapt strategies which have been used up till now to increase soil productivity for greater and sustainable production in terms of agricultural growth and economic production and the welfare health of our populations. This summit, which comes at a time where there's critical conditions of meteorology, gives us an opportunity to bring our resources together in the fight of these climatic conditions and to conjugate our efforts to attain our objectives in terms of environmental and food security sustainability. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it has been proven that in spite of its vast economic and agricultural potential and the fact that agriculture is a sector that gives employment to the vast majority of people, Africa still remains a major importer of food products. The volume of its exports is in deficit in spite of the commitment made since the Abuja summit in 2006. 17 years afterwards, the use of fertilizer still remains low at the continental level, and the challenges faced by our countries to guarantee food security call for collective mobilization of all stakeholders that we are, just like other African countries. Agriculture occupies the pride of place in Africa's economy. It contributes to the tune of 50% of the GDP, and nearly 70% of the active population is involved in agricultural production. However, in spite of its importance, agriculture only occupies 1% of our territory, and perhaps 1/4 of the area which is used for agriculture. The production of fertilizers and the quality of soils, as well as international tension, constitute a problem for Africa's production, in spite of the abundance of arable land. But quite often, the soil remains fragile. This soil, which covers a major part of our countries, is indeed the weak link of agriculture in Central Africa if it is not properly managed and sustainably managed through conservation. The combination of several traditional practices have contributed to the weakening of the soil in Central Africa. The phenomenon of using wood for cooking and overgrazing of our land are issues which should be watched closely to ensure that the future populations should not move in search of fertile land. There's also the vast savanna lands in Africa, which remain virgin land of good quality, which should be closely followed in order that they should be preserved. There is a major volume of agricultural production which is required for the lives of our regional and national populations, but this notion must be replaced by the sustainability of our plant production. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the use of fertilizers in the agriculture sector in Central Africa is indeed comprised of chemical and organic fertilizers. Chemical fertilizers are very expensive, and they are used for the production of cotton, cocoa, coffee, and today corn. The rate of national consumption is 100 kilograms per hectare for the chemical fertilizer and 50 per hectare for the organic fertilizers. For cotton, it's the leading agricultural product, and the chemical fertilizer has always contributed to the production of these products. For the following products, for instance, organic fertilizer, which are produced at the family level, at the head, and they are used for the restoration of degradable land, and this should be encouraged. This fertilizer, which is complementary to chemical fertilizer, have a low impact on human life, and it is used in Central Africa as a way of promoting local production in livestock and agriculture, the sustainability of soils and their restoration. It emerges from this that the lack of the difficult access to fertilizers for these farmers indeed affects agricultural production, and this reduces the expectations of our people. To deal with this constraint, measures to promote the availability of fertilizers is important, even if it remains insufficient. So my country is amongst the pioneers in the quest for complementary solutions based on regenerative agriculture and agroforestry. These innovating practices, the use of fertilizers, enrich soils for a better agricultural performance. Also, there's reforestation, and this makes it possible for our farmers to be able to protect our environment. That is why I would like to call on our partners to stand by us in the use of this practice, which is indeed an efficient agricultural system which is adapted to our realities and in the fight against climate change. This reflection will also revolve on agroecology and the intelligence of agricultural conservation. In this context, agriculture therefore becomes the user because it encourages the ecologists to use fertilizers to get involved in a coherent and productive agricultural system. So I wish all of us success in our deliberations, and I thank you all.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much.
Next, I would like to now call upon His Excellency Dr. Lazarus Makathi Chakwera, President of the Republic of Malawi. Welcome, Your Excellency. Let's encourage him and give him a clap as he's approaching the podium. Welcome, sir.
Excellencies, heads of state and government, Chair of the African Commission, as well as Chair of the African Union, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor to represent Malawi and her interest in matters to do with fertilizer and soil health at this important summit. With 9 million Malawians facing food insecurity this year as a result of poor rains occasioned by the El Niño weather, we consider any discussion regarding anything that affects food production to be a matter of national security. And so our presence here is not for the sake of participation, but a matter of socioeconomic survival. As a nation, we are very keen to partner with others on the continent and beyond in addressing one of the root causes of low productivity in agriculture: hunger and food insecurity. In fact, by being here, we are tackling one of the chief pillars of the high inflation that drives and deepens poverty in Africa. For much of the inflation we see in our economies is fueled by food inflation. And relevant to this discussion is the urgency of investing in the health of our soils to improve productivity. Malawi has not been spared from the crisis of degraded soils, and we are seeing the consequences of the same through the diminishing harvests that we are obtaining year in and year out. My government has therefore taken special interest in addressing soil health issues, and we will soon be piloting a program to address the high acidity levels in the soils of certain parts in Malawi, with the aim of quickly scaling up the same to other parts. But this is not the first intervention Malawi has effected since Abuja 2006. Previous interventions have included the improvement of smallholder farmers' access to inorganic fertilizer, which has been largely achieved through the Affordable Input Program, AIP, I introduced when I took office 4 years ago. However, we have noted that even though our efforts to improve access and use of inorganic fertilizers have led to an increase in our national food production output, the benefits have not been enjoyed by everyone at domestic level as desired. In fact, studies show that in the parts of Malawi where the gains have not been registered, the effectiveness of inorganic fertilizer plummeted by approximately 70% between 2014 and 2022 due to soil degradation, which is worsened by climate change impacts like cyclones and droughts. We have therefore realized that adding nutrients through the use of chemical fertilizers is not adequate for increasing crop productivity and reducing hunger and food insecurity. For the missing link is the urgent need to address soil health issues. This is a reason why my government has proactively developed a 10-year plan, Malawi Action Plan on fertilizer and soil health, to domesticate the continental framework which we're adopting at this summit. Our goal is to improve soil health, improve the usage of organic and inorganic fertilizers, improve soil productivity, and reduce soil degradation, and soil erosion. In so doing, we will reverse the negative trend in the deterioration of our soil health through a set of interventions that have been outlined in the action plan. Through our action plan, costing approximately $163 million, we will leverage existing programs by government and other stakeholders with our development partners' support to ensure swift and effective implementation. Through our action plan, we will implement the Continental Fertilizer and Soil Health Action Initiative and others aimed at improving soil productivity. Through our action plan, Malawi will take her place in the world as a food basket for all the countries in the world that do not have the arable land, fresh water, and agricultural human capital that we have. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. When I grow up, I'll want to speak English like he does. Impeccable English. Welcome, sir. Thank you. So next, allow me to call on stage His Excellency Nangolo Mbuba, President of the Republic of Namibia. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, our Director of Ceremonies, Your Excellency, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, President of the Republic of Kenya, and our gracious host, Your Excellency Musa Faki Mahamat, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Your Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, Honorable Ministers, distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. I am pleased to address this African Union Summit for the first time as President of the Republic of Namibia, following the most untimely passing on February 4th, 2014, of our beloved third President, His Excellency Dr. Hage G. Geingob. May his memory and legacy continue to live on. Your Excellencies, given that the global population has risen fourfold over the past century, significant more food is needed worldwide, which correlate with the need for more agricultural inputs, including fertilizers. In the African context in particular, addressing food demand is a pressing issue given the continent's rapidly growing population and the challenges posed by natural disasters, soil degradation, as well as limited access to modern agricultural inputs and technologies. In this regard, fertilizer can help address nutrient deficiency in African soils, thereby increasing crop yields and improving food security. However, it is important to note that while fertilizers have played a crucial role in increasing agricultural productivity, their indiscriminate use can also have negative environmental consequences, such as soil degradation, water pollution, and greenhouse gas emissions. Therefore, a balanced approach to soil fertilizer management is essential. Integrating mineral fertilizer with organic inputs, conservation agricultural practices, and agroecological principles to promote sustainable agricultural systems that meet both the current and future food needs without compromising the health of the environment. This holistic approach will be critical for addressing the food demands of Africa and ensuring the long-term sustainability of global food production system. Your Excellencies, approximately 70% of Namibians are dependent on agriculture for their livelihoods, even though agriculture contributes to our country's gross domestic product is currently only 8%. Crop and livestock farming support the majority of Namibians, many of whom resides in rural areas. A large percentage of our farmers still practice subsistence farming and rain-fed agriculture and livestock herding. Furthermore, given Namibia's arid, semi-arid environment, large-scale commercial agriculture is constrained by scarcity of water. The main crops under irrigation include maize, wheat, vegetables, and fodder for the animals. At the regional level, Namibia, together with other SADC member states and key stakeholders, develop the harmonized fertilizer regulatory framework to promote uptake and improve utilization of quality fertilizers. This framework is in line with the 2006 Abuja Declaration on Fertilizer for an African Green Revolution to stimulate and improve access and availability of quality fertilizers. We also support the full operationalization of the African Union Fertilizer Center in Zimbabwe, which should be reflected in our outcome documents. Your Excellencies, Namibia is ready to play its part to contribute to food security on the African continent. While imports of fertilizer into the continent are welcome, local production should be promoted and supported. Our country is endowed with natural wind and sun resources, and it is well on its way to become a competitive producer and exporter of green hydrogen, reckoned to catalyze the decarbonization planet. Green ammonia is a derivative of green hydrogen, and at full scale, Namibia will be producing about 3 million tons of green ammonia annually for regional and global markets. With increased local production of green ammonia, which is one of the ingredients necessary to produce fertilizers, our continent can augment food production through fertilizer usage. Agricultural produce can be further traded through the African Continental Free Trade Area at an affordable price. We therefore invite potential investors to explore opportunities in ammonia and fertilizer production in our country, Namibia, and elsewhere on the African continent. Additionally, we encourage fellow African member states to endeavor to acquire fertilizer from Africa as a means of supporting efforts to produce more fertilizers locally. We hope this sentiment will also be reflected in our outcome documents. Excellencies, by fostering collaboration, innovation, and investment in agricultural development, we can overcome the challenges facing African agriculture and unlock the sector's full potential to nourish growing population, alleviate poverty, and derive economic growth. Let us as Africans work together in unison by holding hands and remaining steadfast in our commitment to advancing the global food security, poverty reduction, and sustainable development across the continent. By doing so, we ensure that we are on the way to becoming, as a quote, our own quote, an integrated prosperous and peaceful Africa, driven by its own citizens and representing a dynamic force in the international arena. Asante sana, I thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. And I'll also now call on stage to make his remarks His Excellency Russell Dlamini, Prime Minister of the Kingdom of Eswatini. If we can kindly just give him a warm welcome as he's approaching the dais. Welcome, sir.
Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya, Honorable William Ruto, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, African Union Chairperson and President of the Republic of Mauritania, Excellencies, distinguished heads of states and governments, distinguished delegates, it is a distinct privilege for me to address this esteemed gathering at the Africa Fertiliser and Soil Health Summit on behalf of His Majesty King Mswati III of Eswatini. First and foremost, I would like to convey our profound appreciation for the warm hospitality extended to myself and my delegation since our arrival in Nairobi. This summit is taking place at a challenging time for the Republic of Kenya and neighboring states as they grapple with the first-hand impacts of climate change, including the devastating floods. On behalf of His Majesty, the King, and the entire Eswatini nation, I extend our deepest condolences to those affected by these tragedies. It is our sincere prayer that there may be comfort to those who have lost their loved ones and speedy relief to those who have survived and are adversely affected. Chairperson and distinguished delegates, it is important. The importance of soil health and fertilizer use in agriculture cannot be overstated. Soil is a fundamental natural resource that underpins food production and the attainment of food sovereignty. It serves as the bedrock of our agricultural systems, providing essential nutrients and structural support for growth. Without healthy soils, our ability to achieve high yields, quality produce, sustainable and resilient food systems, and ultimately food sovereignty is compromised. Looking ahead, it is imperative to embrace sustainable agricultural practices that prioritize soil health, biodiversity, and long-term sustainability to secure a healthy and productive food system for future generations. Eswatini, like many nations globally, has historically promoted the use of synthetic fertilizers due to their cost effectiveness and efficacy, which contributed to improvements in agricultural productivity. However, this reliance has also led to a decline in soil health, underscoring the need to strike a balance between synthetic and organic fertilizers. We have recognized the significance of promoting sustainable agricultural practices and have implemented a suite of initiatives and programs prioritizing soil health and responsible fertilizer use through an integrated nutrient management approach. An emblematic example is that our government's official envelopes are inscribed with the motto, "The soil is our greatest asset. Help conserve it." To that end, it has been mentioned in this conference, as it has been mentioned in this conference already, we have, as a country, conformed to the Abuja Declaration in that we have achieved 57 kilograms per hectare nutrient content in the soil. And for this, we can be proud as a country. This indicates that the Eswatini programs are in line with the theme of this conference, Speak to the Soil. As African countries, we must guard against dumping of low quality and dangerous products from outside of our continent. African leaders must learn to reject temporal solutions that cause significant and costly problems in the long term. To achieve this, Africa must implement robust standards, pragmatic policies, and effective control measures. Research has proven that we can learn many good practices from indigenous people and build upon such for scaling up and sustaining food production systems. In conclusion, by investing in research and the development of mechanized equipment and technologies for organic fertilizer application, we can facilitate the transition to sustainable farming practices. As a result of the intelligent and progressive deliberations we've had here, I look forward to the partnerships that will be forged amongst ourselves as a continent that will drive positive change in our continent's agricultural landscape. Lastly but not least, Your Excellency and all distinguished delegates, I want to unequivocally state that the Kingdom of Eswatini will fully support and commit to the Nairobi Declaration, which has been tabled in this conference, including its implementation roadmap. I thank you. Asante San.
Your Excellency, and country representatives and heads of delegation will have an opportunity to speak in the next session and to make their remarks. So allow me to now proceed to development partners, and to start us off on that session, allow me to invite Professor Benedict Orama, President and Chairman of the Board of Directors, African Export-Import Bank. Welcome, sir. If we have Professor Benedict this is your chance to make your presentation. And if not, maybe we'll just proceed as maybe we continue so that we save on time. Allow me to now invite Her Excellency Anne Beth, Minister of International Development, Government of Norway. If we can please put our hands together as she's coming. Welcome.
Your Excellency, President William Ruto, Your Excellencies, Presidents, Vice Presidents, and Ministers, distinguished participants, farmers, friends. First, allow me to extend my sympathy and condolences for the losses that our hosts, the Kenyan people, have experienced during the last weeks of extreme rains. We recognize that this region suffers disproportionately from the impact of climate change. Our prayers are with you. Our solidarity and partnership in climate change mitigation and adaptation remains unwavering. Africa's soils is a foundation of agricultural economy, supporting the livelihoods and the food and nutrition safety of millions of people. By investing in sustainable soil management and improved crop nutrition, farmers can mitigate the negative impacts of soil degradation as well as unlock the full potential of the agricultural sector. Norway has enjoyed close cooperation with the AUC as the chair of the Donors Partners Coordination Group, together with the alternate chair, United States. During this conference, we, the Development Partners Coordination Group, reconfirm our strong support for the Africa Fertiliser and Soil Health Agenda. Soil health lies at the heart of agriculture and food systems sustainability, at the heart of economic growth, environment and climate resilience, and ultimately, it is at the heart of food security and food sovereignty. Our common future depends on protecting and restoring the productive capacity of soils. We therefore welcome the Nairobi Declaration at the Africa Fertiliser and Soil Health Summit as a part of a global effort to manage the soil that we all depend upon. By prioritizing soil health, the African Union demonstrates visionary leadership and commitment to secure a prosperous future for generations to come. The Africa Fertiliser and Soil Health Agenda is embedded in the Comprehensive African Agricultural Development Programme, KADEP. It provides a framework for addressing agriculture and rural development and harnessing investment opportunities, promoting soil conservation, soil fertility, sustainable land management. It lays the foundation for productive agri-food systems across your continent. Consultations are now well underway to redesign the post-Malabo agenda, leading to the next generation of KADEP. The outcome of this summit will help shape the KADEP of the future. The partners acknowledge the African Union Commission's leading role, together with AU-affiliated institutions, the UN Development System, regional organizations, and national authorities in implementing the African Fertiliser and Soil Health Action Plan at continental, sub-regional, and national level. And we stand ready to assist member states and other stakeholders, especially farmers, through strategic partnerships, technical assistance, and financial support. This includes supporting governments to develop national action plans that outline strategies and investment plans for fertilizer and soil health. Let us step up the work to promote this common global agenda across borders, across sectors, to safeguard the health of our soils. And in all our endeavors, the farmer should be in the front and center. I would like to thank Kenya and AU with organizing this very important event. See you all in Kampala next year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, I'd like to invite His Excellency Theodore Ngema Obiang from Equatorial Guinea. Let's give him a clap as he's approaching the stage. Welcome, sir.
Su Excelencia William Samoei Ruto, Presidente de la República de Kenia, nuestro anfitrión. Sus Excelencias.
Excellency, President, and Excellency Moussa Faki, Chairperson of the African Union Commission. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. President, permit me at the outset to convey to you President Ruto, the President of the Republic of Kenya, to convey to you oh, the personal greetings of peace and well-being from your brother and your colleague, President Oba, President Basogo, President of the Republic of Equatorial Guinea, who, despite his desire and interest in participating in this important summit, could not come here personally due to, and so he wishes you success in this meeting, which is taking place in this beautiful city of Nairobi. Permit me also to express our gratitude to the government and people of Kenya for the warm reception and the hospitality accorded us. Also, we would like to express our appreciation for the excellent organization of this important meeting, which is on fertilizers and soil health. I would also like to reiterate on this occasion our heartfelt condolences and solidarity with the people, our brothers and sisters of Kenya, following the floods which have led to loss of human and uh, lives and the loss of properties and several thousands of people displaced. Mr. President, it's appropriate that the African Union, in coordination and in consensus with all its member states, has decided to tackle head-on the issue of fertilizer and free the African continent from its dependence on others for food and ensure our food sovereignty. Due to the COVID-19 crisis, droughts, and famine, as well as traditional armed conflicts, all these factors have combined to worsen the food crisis due to the vulnerability of the agriculture sector. And this has resulted in more poverty, famine, and food insecurity, etc. Africa should produce quality food to feed Africans. And we should leverage the arable lands available to us in order to realize this. And so achieving full self-sufficiency and full sovereignty in Africa, and to achieve that is to boost agricultural productivity per hectare. And this requires a change of the production system through the use of fertilizers, which have to be produced by Africans themselves in order to cut down on imports from other continents. The fertilizer market, for it to be sustainable and to help small holder farmers, should be organized in line with the 2006 Abuja Declaration through the creation of an African mechanism for financing fertilizer acquisition, as well as the clear management of the model of financing of the African Union member states. I also want to reiterate that the issue of agricultural transformation, as contained in the Malabo Declaration, of June 2014, which defines the clear targets in order to finance agriculture on this continent, at least which should be amount to 10% of the GDP of African countries. But we are far from achieving that. Notwithstanding, this summit is necessary so that the African Union could take note and assess the Malabo Declaration after 10 years of implementation, achieving health, achieving the health of soil and then sustainable soil